Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to our amazing JNForever family on Zoom. Thank you for joining us on Wednesday. I know it's different than we usually do, but thank you all the same. You all know by now I'm Jackie Chait, Legacy Manager for JNF Victoria, and I'm going to change my spiel about leaving a bequest. I'm just going to say, put up your hand if you want to, and I'll go through the screen and come and take you for a cup of coffee. So anyway, you know my spiel. You know, anytime you want to chat to me, I'm always available. I know it's a very confidential kind of a discussion, but that's par for the course. So feel free to contact me. We all know the in-house rules. So the new thing we've been doing recently, which I think is working, is that you type your questions or your comments in the chat box, and then I get to them at the end. So now, without much more ado, our incredible guest today, Esther Malka Groner. I sincerely thank Esther for being here. And although this event will be done as a Q&A, like we did the one before, Professor Halver Jackson, there is some introduction warranted. But before doing so, I just wanted to clarify that we will be focusing on Esther's personal journey as opposed to the Netflix series Unorthodox. However, please feel free to ask questions pertaining to the series in the chat box, and we'll hopefully get them to them in the end. You know, if there's anything you did want clarification on regarding how things were portrayed in that series. And further, on a personal note, I always say that there's more than enough anti-Semitism in the world. So it is actually a privilege to have someone speak to us about the portrayal of extremism in the Frum Jewish spectrum, but at the end of the day, speaking with honesty and good intent, that we're actually at the end all Jewish. So we'll hear what she has to say. So briefly, Esther Malka Groner was born into the Satmar community of Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Together with her family, they were ultimately excommunicated and went to live in Israel to start afresh. Today, Esther is the co-founder and director of Chabad Glen Ara, and she also has an excellent sense of humor. I must say it's been a joy communicating with her thus far. So Esther, we're going first to question 1. Is Esther there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Esther, yes. Okay, so firstly, apologies for the first question that's a little bit loaded, but I'm sure you're used to this. Can you please give us a synopsis of the background and the sort of the definition of the Satmar community, how they came to be, because there's a lot of intrigue about them and of their establishment, and of course, some insight into, you know, their way of life and philosophy.
Yes, it's a very loaded question. Good morning, everybody. It's really nice to see. I'm very impressed. There's so many people here who haven't gone shopping, haven't got to get their nails done, haven't got for waxing. I'm super impressed. So nice to see everybody, see some familiar faces. It's good to be here. It's beautiful what you do, and it's quite impressive. So how did I grow up? What is the Satmar community? So of course, it's a very broad question, and I'll give you a bit of explanation. So I was born within the Satmar community. Both my parents, grandparents were Satmar. So the Satmar community in general, they're a Hungarian community. They come originally from the city of Satu in Romania / Hungary, and they've become more of an insular community, even their post-Holocaust community, and just to contain their Judaism and their traditions, they've become more insular even than they were before the war. And they very much believe that that's the way to carry on traditions to the next generation. And when I say about insular, they really shut the whole world out. There's no newspapers, no radio. They have their own newspapers, but they don't actually, they speak Yiddish, and they really don't mix with anybody else besides their own. They do have business associations if they're in business, but that's about it. They try to have religious doctors, even if they can. They're extremely, their community has a lot of chesed, as they call it. They do a lot of kindness and goodness fundraising within their own community. And if you reach out to them, they will definitely help you. But it's a very serious community as far as the Judaism. Not serious is not the right word, but the Judaism is very much a based rule. Don't ask questions. Do whatever you need to do. Don't think too much. And it's very much a fact-based. This is how it is. This is how it's always been done. And this is how it should be done forever, kind of thing. Their families, they marry off their children quite young. Yes, they do have very short meeting between the girl and the boy. When I say by short, it's really short. Their families meet first, and the boy and girl meet for like 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes there'll be a second date, and that's it. So I grew up in, just to put in perspective, my mother was born in the city of Satmara. So you actually can get more Satmar than that. She was born in the city after the war, 47. So my parents are about, 73, 74. And then, but my father was born in Hungary, and post-war, they were Hasidic Jews, but post-war, they attached themselves to the Satmar community. So my mother's side of the family is more of an extreme kind of Satmar in general than my father's. But that's my father's the one that brought his family to Satmar, while my mother was born within the community. My grandmother and my mother's whole family is very close to Satmar Rebbe. As a child, I used to, tag along with my grandmother and play in their house and all that. I had a Satmar education till year 8, and what that means is, I must say, I had a really, really happy childhood. I loved my life. We had lots of cousins. I was really, really happy. Grandparents, and I'm sure many of you know, post-Holocaust family was like your 15th cousin was your aunt and uncle, so we were all very close. Went to all the weddings. It was beautiful, beautiful childhood. I went through the Satmar education in primary school, which in New York is till year 8. Had a very basic education. Surprisingly enough, even in Jewish studies, I had a very basic Jewish studies education. It's not very text-based, it's more like storyline. And needless to say, in general studies was also very basic. And I had lots of friends. And I was quite happy. It was really a great childhood. And that's my childhood in a nutshell. Did I leave anything out, Jackie? If you have any questions, feel free.
No,
I'm sure there'll be lots of questions.
No, there will be. So no, that's exactly you answered perfectly well. Just so before the next question, which it will be more about your family background, if I'll just get Ariella to show, Esther just wanted us to show some photos as we go along. There's 2 photos Esther wanted us to see. This is Esther as a child. Well, how old there, Esther?
I think it was like 13, maybe.
13. Okay, and then there was the next photo was of the school, and you can see everybody.
That's our graduation photo at the end of year 8. So as you can see, a lot of girls are wearing plaits. Everyone's wearing long skirt. Their haircuts are quite short. Nothing goes. If you have shoulder length hair, then it turns into you have to wear it as a either as plaits or as a ponytail. So I wore it as plaits. My family was considered really, really heavy Satmar. So we were like the real deal kind of Satmar. So yeah, that's why I'm one of the ones wearing plaits.
Plaits. Okay, we'll show some more photos later on. Thanks, Ariella. So then the next question leads on. So you've said a little bit about your family background and growing up in that environment. So you're saying that being part of the community was a very positive experience. It was
absolutely, for me, it was very positive.
And so then obviously the next question is then what led to your eventually leaving this community or excommunication from this community? How did this come about?
Yeah, so my father is he's a scholar. He he sits and learns, studies Talmud all day. In fact, I think Corona suited him perfectly. He's not a very he's not a very social person. He loves his study. He loves his books, and he just was always studying. So it came to a point that he felt, and he had a private. He ran a private yeshiva, a private high school for high school boys. And it was kind of it was a lot of the very smart boys were the ones that wanted extra curriculum. He challenged them, and he had that's what he did. And at one point he felt like the Judaism that he was sharing with them, and the books that he was sharing with them, the learning that was sharing with them, it just wasn't enough. So I think a lot of that was very he wasn't comfortable with it. So he started searching, and he got to the Chabad book. The Chabad first book is called the Tanya. He started looking at it and studying it, and it really, really intrigued him. For the first time in his life, he felt that there was a lot of depth to it, a lot of understanding, a lot of wisdom, and a lot of all of a sudden Judaism had quite a different outlook on life. So he started researching a little bit more, getting in contact with some Chabad people, and he shared all this with my mother. That's one very important point. So he didn't and he didn't shy away from sharing it with her, because it was a very, very big deal. Everything had to be really, really secretive. No one was allowed to know. And anybody that would find out, his life and the life of his family would be at risk, because at that point Chabad was considered to them Chabad is very different. Chabad is very much more non-judgmental, open. A Jew is a Jew, regardless of what he does. Every mitzvah is beautiful. Every positive thing is celebrated, as opposed to their view, which is not like that at all. If you don't look like me, if you're not like me, you're not necessarily that same level of a Jew. And all of a sudden, to him, it was so endearing. So all of a sudden, there's a whole positive outlook on God, a whole positive outlook on a mitzvah, a whole positive outlook on Jews, and it was just so refreshing to him. And he absolutely loved it. So the more he studied, the more he got involved, and the more he moved away from that community, taking my mother with him, and lots of students that he quietly started teaching Chabad philosophy. And it's like this whole life change. And I remember when I first asked him, it was all very secretive, and I walked into the study and I saw a book about Chabad philosophy or Kabbalah. Chabad philosophy is based on mystic Judaism, and I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Oh, no, it's nothing." And then he spilled the beans, and I was like, "No way! It can't be. That's not Judaism. You're losing it." And to me, my father, who I absolutely idolized and still do idolize him, it was like, oh my gosh, he's losing the plot. And what he did was actually really, really, really smart. He got me a teacher to teach me mysticism. And don't forget, at that point, I haven't learned a lot of Judaism in depth. So to me, even as a young child, I was only 12 years old, was very, very refreshing, eye-opening. And it was really a new world, and we all loved it. So, but once people started finding out, my father got to a point which we lived in Williamsburg, and if anybody has been to Williamsburg, it's quite a dense Hasidic community. Actually, there's a lot of hipsters there as well, so it's a community of both now. And so my father walked to Crown Heights, and a neighbor on Simchat Torah, a neighbor saw him and dubbed him in, kind of thing. And once he was dubbed in, and parents of those students started finding out, the community started finding out, they weren't very impressed. The yeshiva closed straight away. We had to move away from Williamsburg. We moved to Borough Park, which is another less intense Hasidic borough. And our life was at risk. Ultimately, they were really, really, really upset with my father. They were really upset with my family. My mother's family stopped speaking to us. They tried to convince us that we're off the right path, but when nothing helped, they stopped communicating with us. My father's family was less extreme, so they were in touch with us, but they were not very happy because it was huge embarrassment. And eventually my father was kidnapped. I never like to discuss this type of this part of the story, but he was kidnapped. Unfortunately, I'm being honest, and I want you to ask honest questions. His beard was not shaven, but cut, and he was seriously injured to a point to which he was taken to the hospital. I want to get back to that story later, so if I forget, remind me about the person who actually instrumented and did it. And then we had no choice but to move to Israel. Once we moved to Israel, again, a new world opened to us. We were free to practice our own style of Judaism. We were free to be Chabad. And the good part for us as children was, I'm the oldest of 7 children. So for us, for me, and of course my younger siblings, some of them were actually born in Israel, so they never were part of this Satmar saga, is that I actually got to further my education. I got a degree, and a whole new world opened to me. So that's when we fully were able to be Chabad and just be who we really want to be, which to us was the biggest gift, that I was able to do that, which I had an opportunity which I would never have had we stayed there. So we went through a lot in that respect, but I think at the end it was a win-win situation. So it was a good result.
Absolutely. Just so you said you will discuss it later if need be, but just a question with regard to, injuring your father, and that, would that have been orchestrated by the organization as a whole, or by some lone ranger who took it upon themselves to do such an extreme thing?
Okay, it's a very good question. I do believe that, that not every community, but some community, they're a very extreme community in general. So as much as they were lone rangers, that couldn't have happened in another community, because those people would have been unacceptable. So there were definitely lone rangers, but it was supported by that community. Having said that, I must say, I know I'm fast forwarding a lot. A lot has changed. It's not very popular now to be so extreme and to take such extreme measures. A lot has changed, and I'm going to touch on that soon.
Yeah, well,
but that guy that being that we're talking about, that guy that actually orchestrated the whole thing, many years later, when my father visited, or my parents visited New York, and they stayed for a Shabbat at my father's brother's house, there was a knock on the door, and that guy was at the door. And my uncle was like, I'm not letting him in. And because they were, the fear stays with you forever. And my father's like, no, let him in. My father, as you can imagine, is quite a brave guy. And I must say, I have to give my mother a lot of credit for all this, because like I said before, my father's like a bit of a, he's in a league of his own. My mother, kind of, as much as she really lost a lot of friends, she lost her family, she lost everything. she'll tell you it was definitely worth it, and she regained them later on, which I'll talk about. But she's an incredible woman. I've got amazing parents. But my father said, you know, let me chat with him. And he came in and he was just bawling, and he apologized for what he's done and for what he's come to. He was really he was so remorseful, and my father said to him, you don't have to apologize to me. I'm just part of a movement. Well, I don't like to call it movement, but really, maybe perhaps you should go pray at the graveside of the Rebbe and apologize. Not pray, but just ask for forgiveness, kind of thing, on behalf, you know, for the whole, for what has happened. So it's not only me, but you've actually insulted a community. So perhaps ask for forgiveness. So that was a real full circle. So that was very heartwarming.
That is amazing. So that was near the end, but we'll come back to that. But that is amazing to hear, because you don't think that can happen. So then you've said also that Israel now was a very rewarding time in your life, although it must have been a challenge initially, new language, new culture, new everything.
Absolutely, yes.
You have come out of that with flying colors. So then your next step in the journey is, and we'd all like to know, is how you then landed up on these sunny shores and married to the lovely Rabbi Mendy Groner. And can you tell us about that and a bit about your own family?
Yes, I will. I graduated in Israel. I graduated college, tertiary college, and I got my degree. And my brother suggested that he's got a really lovely young man I should meet, Mendy Groner. He spent a summer with him, and he thinks it's a good idea for him. So off I went back to New York, but don't tell him I said that. But he didn't want to go out with me for a whole year, because he goes, oh, she's probably the summer nerdy girl. Who is she? So eventually he goes, fine, I'll go out with her. So poor guy, he didn't know that I will never let him live it down and tease him for the rest of his life. But we went out, we ended up meeting a year later. So I lived in New York, I taught in New York, and after 2 years of living in New York, it was going to be a year, but it took time for Australians to give me the visa, and then we moved to Australia. So we're here. We have 8 kids. 2 of them are married. We have 2 girls and 6 boys. A lot of boys in the house, and 2 of them are married. One has 2 little delicious boys. They're just very far, but absolutely delicious. And so she's married to, well, you see soon, a beautiful guy. And the second one also married to Ilan, who's a doctor. And so they're married, and the boys are, I've got, I've got one son that finished law at the moment, just graduated. I've got another son studying in, two other boys that are studying in America. One is working in America, one is studying in America.
Amazing.
And, the other ones are still in school.
Beautiful. So they have a few scattered, and any of them in Israel?
No. My parents are in Israel. My 2 younger sisters are in Israel, and not my children. Okay. I think probably by the end of it, 1 or 2 might end up there, but not yet.
Amazing. Beautiful. So almost near the end, in terms of a conclusion right before and they all lived happily ever after, would there be a message to all of us, as to the influence you've had on your own community, the influence that we can all have, I actually asked the question a few weeks back to our other speaker, the Tikkun Olam, how we can all be seen as a big happy family, and your influence and your position in your own community.
Well, it's interesting because like I said, we were excommunicated. And many years later, one of my friends reached out and she said, you know, if you ever come to New York, I would love to have a class reunion. And we did. So 14 years ago was the first time I went. I was very nervous to go. I didn't know what to expect because the last time I saw these girls, I wasn't in their good books. In fact, my best friend literally told me to leave the house because she can't be associated with me. So obviously my feelings towards them weren't very positive. However, I did feel like I needed closure. I felt like a lot of things have changed, and they have. So I went, and it was such a positive experience. It was, people have changed so much. This is my class reunion.
Yep.
So I'm somewhere in the corner over there, and it was such a positive experience. People were apologetic. People were not comfortable with what had happened. People have really come a long way. And since then, my family also, we all talk. We're a beautiful family now. Everybody's has changed a lot. You know, people have started researching more and studying more and learning more about what it's all about. So it's very easy to judge on the outside. It's very easy, you know. After that class reunion, I was like, they were all like, you know, they couldn't believe of, you know, I live so far and think for my family, but I have my family here. My community is my family. I love what I do. I feel like every single day I wake up and it's like, it's just another beautiful day of beautiful involvement with the community. Women in our community have got like, I feel like we're just partners with our husbands and whatever they do, it's all, it's we're in it together. And I think there was like, wow, you got out of the kitchen, good on you kind of attitude. And I don't like the kitchen to this day. Just don't tell anyone. My poor, they eat. My family eats. My family eats well, but that's about it. So I think on the surface we look so different, and we are, but essentially we're all. I think that's why, you know, when we go back to everybody loved Shtisel, and I think what everybody loved about it was essentially we're all human beings, and we all. It's very quick and easy to judge. It's very quick to come to the conclusions, but I think, you know, 30 years down the track or 4 years down the track, they're all waking up, woke up and go, you know what? They're just like us. We're all essentially one. And we're all have that spark in us. We're all one community, and no one should be judged on any level, because we are who we are. In the eyes of God, we're all one. So why aren't we? Should be one, because in his eyes, we're his children, and we're all one. So and we're all the same. We have a spark of God in us, and we've got a soul, and whatever we do is cherished and precious in the eyes of God, and we should celebrate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's without hesitation. A beautiful, beautiful message. There are just a few more photos. Ariela's computer's been sort of acting up today, and she said it's got a mind of her own. So let's just see if she can get the rest of the photos up. Are you there, Ariela? There we go. And then Esther can just talk us through. So we've seen the class reunion, and then I don't know if they're coming. You, Ariela, there? Okay.
So that's at my,
I think even the computers have had enough of lockdown. There we go.
This is just a photo of at my daughter's engagement. So you can see all my Satmar family came and joined us and celebrated with us, which is really, really, really heartwarming and beautiful. So that was one. And we have one of like, you know, this is my husband Menti, and the redhead is my son-in-law, and my Satmar cousins. They're all my first cousins. As you can imagine, it's a large family, and they all came. And recently in December 2019, my other daughter got married in New York. She got married in December. How lucky we were to have the wedding then. And see everybody, my parents, my kids. Was the first time they actually met their first cousins, because they've never, you know, we live in Australia. We don't travel very often with a whole family. We actually don't at all. It's one of us always traveling. So we got to, as you can see, my parents, they are Chabad, but they still wear the shtreimel, the tichel. They still dress like they were in summer. They felt no need to change. They felt changes on the inside is your way of thinking, and that was their traditional clothing, and they felt that they should honor that and keep it. We didn't, obviously, you know, the next generation, but so that's at the wedding in New York with my daughter. So we were very lucky.
I've always wanted to touch one of those strommels.
They're very soft and fluffy and very expensive.
My cat would love to jump on.
It's really expensive.
Yeah,
so if you're going to touch one, in fact, you talk about unorthodox, that was one of the things I was like, oh my God, they didn't want to spend a lot of money on the real shtreimels. I could have organized a few hundred of them to borrow, but anyway, and they were fake, and they looked very fake.
You could see those were fake, definitely. They're not like the ones I see down the road.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what we'll do now is, because there's quite a lot of questions that before the questions, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you are so candid and you're so real, and your events just are heartwarming and resonate with everybody. So from that, thank you so very much. We will get to the proper vote of thanks afterwards. I'm just going to change my screen back to gallery view, and then I'll just see some of the questions that people have asked. Okay, so I'm just going back to the beginning, sorry. Let's see. One question was, did you learn any English? Which clearly you did.
I'm still very self-conscious of my English, but yes, I did.
Your English is excellent. Okay, so there was a question from Elisa Gray. If the men study all day and there are many children, how do they cope financially? Where does the income come from? I'm not sure if she meant the Satmar community or general or...
Yeah, it's a very good question. So a lot of the men, I'm particularly going to speak about the Satmar community or the Hasidic community in general. They don't study, but a lot of them, to their credit, once they start having children, they don't study all day. Some Orthodox Haredi communities do, but the Hasidic community doesn't, and they actually find jobs. You know, a lot of them live in New York, so it's kind of a lot of you know, family-based businesses. I know all my cousins, they take a course, they're either tilers or cabinet makers or blazers, whatever they are, and they take the burden of the you know, then nobody lives a very fancy lifestyle, so it's not like they give each child a car or holiday, and they have very respectable incomes. They don't live luxuriously, most of them. Obviously, there's some that do, and yes, and in some cases, the wives work as well. When I was growing up, they didn't, but I think things have changed that they are, you know, two incomes are more necessary. But once they have majority, once they have their families, they're stay-home moms, and they do it very well and very proudly. It's what they want to do. Nobody's making them do anything. Anybody specifically wants to go out to work, they can. To be a secretary or a teacher or whatever, but they very proudly want to be a majority. Of course, there's some that don't, but yeah, they do it very well.
Yes, I think
they're good at it. My cupboards do not look like their cupboards, I can guarantee. My silver is not as polished as theirs. They're doing well at what they're doing, and they do it proudly. So if that's what they want, then their choice, then as long as it's their choice.
Yes. From my own experience, because I've got a son in yeshiva at the moment, I call him my penguin. My penguin told me that there are certain people that are destined or have the intellect to be full-time scholars, and that's highly regarded, actually, but that's probably a very small percentile where that's considered a good thing. You've disappeared. Esther's disappeared now.
Why? Can you see me?
No, now we can hear you. We lost you for a second.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. So from a question from Jess Goldstein, why do you think the SACMA community are changing? What has motivated them? What has changed in the last few decades? Are children getting a better education now?
I think things have changed because, you know, the world is opening up. When this all happened with my father, they started something which was called studying on the telephone. They started a hotline where people can dial in. They don't have to, so to speak, risk their lives to get out of their comfort zone and study on the phone in those days. And that opened a whole new world. Because like I said, I think, you know, hatred is based on something that you don't know enough about. But once you start studying and understanding, and that's what happened. I think the world opened up, the internet came in, and people, it's not fashionable to be so extreme. And people are, I don't know if their education in school is better, but I think their outlook on life and their tolerance of other people has become better, because the world is becoming a more tolerant place. Although they're probably many years behind the rest of the world, they're still part of it, and therefore, you know, they have more access. They have more other, you know, once the internet opened up and they can see and learn more from other cultures, from what other communities are, it has a positive impact. So, and people have gone on. I've had friends that have called me up and I've said, you know, I know a lot more these days. I understand it a lot more. It was so taboo when it all happened to you, and we didn't know what anything else was beside our own community. Now we know a lot more, and we go to Shiurim and we study, and my son-in-law is involved. Like, I've had friends reach out to me a lot, say, oh, you know, don't look at us the same way. We have changed. So on a whole, obviously you still always have some people that won't change and extremists, but on a whole they have changed. So okay. I think that's why. Yeah.
There was just it was more of a statement than a question, but regarding the COVID safety practices. But I'm not sure that that's something that you'd like to discuss, or I don't know if that's, you know, if it's a disregard for the rules, or that's just that they have their own practices. But I'm not sure if that was a question, more of a statement. So we can move on. Do the Satmars and other extreme, this is from Michael Oliver, do the Satmars and other extreme religious similar group consider all other Jews are inferior?
Very good question. It's a very loaded question. Yes and no, because I think they think that the ultimate, I don't know if, I mean, definitely for the Satmar community, I don't know if inferior is the right word, but they think the ultimate Jew looks like them and acts like them. But that's not the truth. The truth is that every Jew is cherished for who he is. God knows our background. God knows what we have to offer, where we come from, and credits our efforts. And every mitzvah that we do is cherished. So we don't have to look like each other, and we definitely don't have to look like them to be the ultimate Jew, because that's not the ultimate Jew. We don't know what the ultimate Jew looks like. We know that every effort and every mitzvah counts. That's what we do now.
Absolutely. I'll just see if we may open, Ariella, have we got time that we can maybe open it up to the floor to see if that was the last of the questions in the chat box. If anyone else wants to ask a question.
I think I saw a question. Someone asked, why is the Unorthodox movie, why has it been such a hit? Why hasn't it been, am I correct?
Oh, well done. I didn't even see that. Sorry. Yes, good one. Sorry. Oh, yes, they're also from Michael.
I think it's a little bit like the royal family. They're so mysterious, and we don't know a lot about them. So I think it's very intriguing to know, you know, what are they like? What's happening over there? So I think it's very intriguing. Because they're so secluded in a way, and so such a close community. We're just all very curious of what really happens there. But unfortunately, what gets portrayed is not always the right story and the correct details. It's not, I just want to go back to the COVID question, because I'm not trying to avoid it. I don't agree with what's happening there. I just, and I can't answer for them. So that's why I'm not answering them. I'm not their spokesperson. They have their own theories, whether they have, herd immunity, and, people haven't been dying, so they have their own reasons of doing it. I don't agree with it, and it shouldn't be done. So I just can't speak for them, and I don't understand why exactly it's happening, especially for us Victorians that are being so careful and so by the letter of the law. So
it's not your it's not your
so I don't live there to understand exactly what's going on.
Absolutely. Thank you. That Elise said thank you. And Rosie Fishbein asked, how is your Yiddish? Yes,
very well. Although having said very well, I'm kind of probably very self-conscious by now, because I don't speak Yiddish all the time. But yes, I speak Hungarian Yiddish, and I speak a Russian Yiddish. In fact, I saw Frida was here before, and we used to teach together many years ago with Rivka, and we used to talk to each other all the time in Yiddish, and it was great. Yes, my Yiddish is very
beautiful
good.
language. Yeah. I understand it because my grandparents only spoke Yiddish, and of course, when they didn't want the child to understand, they'd say,
"Oh, that's right. That's the Hungarian how I know."
Did the Vilda fire, and I'd say, I'm not a Vilda. Anybody else? I think we've got time for Ariella. We've got time for some more questions. Okay, anyone else can just unmute themselves. Sandra, did somebody want to ask anything? Anyone else? I can't see everybody at the same time. Let's go back. If not.
Hello. No? Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Ruth Figdor. I'm not on video.
Oh, okay. That's why I couldn't see you.
We were talking before about your father and being kidnapped and all that business, and you said I'll come back to that and say something about that later.
Oh, I said about the person who actually was instrumental, that he came to apologize.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Okay. If no,
can I just say thank you? I just loved your presentation. I'm Elfie Weiss. I live around the corner from Chabad, and I wanted to say thank you. Beautiful presentation. And you don't look like a grandmother.
That's for
sure. Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. It was just really nice being here this morning.
Very moving. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, then I will call upon our lovely Chair Bella, who goes under the name Naomi Gobbo on the screen. If you'd please to do the vote.
Oh, Esther Malka, that was just sensational. Thank you so much. I believe you have lived a charmed life in a way. You've had the best of both worlds. Living in that small community must have been such a sense of security, and growing up and knowing who you were. I recognise the challenge of having to leave that community, but then you had the opportunity of gaining an education that you've used so well. And I really relate to your vision of a Jew as a Jew, no matter what he does. So our JNF family, we're Jewish in the main, and we are a family, and we are all so different. But isn't it wonderful that we can all accept each other and work together to support our family in Israel through JNForever? So Esther Malka, thank you for an absolutely sensational presentation, and I just so related to and enjoyed your journey. Thank you on behalf of JNForever.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, and as usual, we'll be back next week, next Thursday, It will be an afternoon event because we have an amazing speaker joining us live from Israel. That is, I think Esther mentioned as well, that's been one of the big pluses of Zoom, that you can get speakers from all over the world. And
Right.
although that's shame, they have to wake up so early. This poor guy's got to wake up at 6 or something with the new time change, but he will be speaking to us next week, an amazing speaker. You'll be getting your invites hopefully today or tomorrow. And, you know, just enjoy the fact that you can go shopping. Have fun. And Esther, thanks once again, and we'll see you all next week.